Hi there, and welcome to the Solution Focused Thinking Club tutorial. I'm John Bullock, owner and founding director of Solution Focused, and today joining me is...
My name's Nick Bishop. Hello everyone, and I'm a fellow director in the business. Morning, John.
Morning. And today's tutorial is all about self-talk, talking to ourselves in the right way, in a helpful way rather than a hindering way, and how you can go away and do that and use that to your advantage. So when we have a conversation with ourselves, Nick, and we all do this, we all talk to ourselves, and if you're sitting there now watching this thinking, I'm not sure I talk to myself, John, you're actually now doing it. And they think that we talk to ourselves on average about every 7 seconds, which is actually quite a lot of the time really, Nick, isn't it? And we can focus on between 7 and 9 things at once also. So what that tells us is there's a lot of internal dialogue going on a regular basis. Our problem with our internal dialogue is that majority of it is mostly hindering sometimes. So quick question for you, Nick. When's the last time you beat yourself up about something? You had a bit of a conversation in your head and you beat yourself up about it?
I can give you a great example, John. Only this week, and you might be surprised when I say only this week, probably normally it's more than that even.
Yes, absolutely.
And yet, a big time was, I'm doing a sponsored bike ride this weekend, as you know, 200 miles. And I should have gone out and got more sponsorship. So I was starting to beat myself up. Why hadn't I? I give myself a target of £1,000.
Okay.
Do you know what? I still have Tuesday, Wednesday. I'm up to £900 already. So why did I beat myself up?
Absolutely. And that internal dialogue, it doesn't make you feel very good, does it, when you're doing it?
No, it's self-perpetuating, isn't it? So all of a sudden I'm on a downer, I'm having negative thoughts, not great. But of course now, wow, I've got £900 through a couple of days' effort.
So the thoughts have changed to helpful.
Very much so.
Which is very, very useful, but the majority of the time, most of us have hindering thoughts and we don't do anything with them. They stay in our head. So when we talk to ourselves either in a helpful way or in a hindering way. Is this thought going to help us get to a solution-focused end? Or is it going to hinder us getting to a solution-focused end? An example of that, hindering self-talk, I can't do this. It's impossible. If we flip that over to helpful self-talk, I can do this. I will find a way. Now, when you give your brain those instructions, it will act upon those instructions. Your actions and your behavior are directly linked to the internal dialogue in your brain. And we know that not only from a psychology point of view, but of course also from a neurology point of view. You have electrochemical information that sparks in a neuron when you have a thought. The electricity comes first, that's the thought, then the chemical, that's the emotion, which then gives you enough strength and energy to then take the action. So we know that our thinking directly impacts our behavior. And if we tell ourselves we can't, the brain closes down at that point. If you're thinking of 7 or 9 things all of the time in your head, if you say to your brain, I can't do this, your brain goes, okay, I won't focus on it for you then. And it'll close down for you. Versus when you talk to yourself in a good way, I can do this, it starts to look for a solution for you, does it not?
I think there's 2 points here, John. One is, how do we go about starting to have positive self-talk in the first place, which is number 1. But secondly, how do we break the trigger when we start to think this is negative self-talk?
Yes.
What is the mechanism and coping strategy to change the negative into the positive if we've gone the wrong route?
I think it's a really good point, and it kind of comes to the crux of the content for today's tutorial. Self-talk is easy to do, but we don't do it often very regularly. It's not something we're taught to do at school, is it?
It's not.
In fact, unfortunately, certainly in the UK culture, we're taught things like don't show off. Don't blow your own trumpet. And so when we suggest to somebody, you need to talk to yourself in a better way. You need to be kinder to yourself internally. We think it's not allowed or it doesn't feel right because we haven't been taught that in the past.
Let me give you this one, John. If you had a friend who was regularly saying to you, you're not very good at that, are you, John? Would you keep them as friends? Probably not, or you might say something to them.
Yeah.
But we allow ourselves to do it to ourselves all the time.
I think you're absolutely right. I think if you spoke to your best friend in the way that you talk to yourself, they would not be your friend for very much longer, would they? So let's do ourselves a favour, let's be our own friend, and let's talk to ourselves in a better way. Now, we need to talk to ourselves in a better way if you want a better output. So if you want better results and better behaviours and better actions, it all starts with that thinking piece. So how do we do it? Let's look at your first point that you talked about there. One of the first things we can do is you could actually write down what you want to say to yourself. Just 2 or 3 things that you want to remind yourself of on a regular basis.
Well, a good example, 2 things here, John. I often say to people, and I'll keep this simple because we live in a 24/7, 365-day culture, but let's call it 9 to 5, Monday, Friday.
Yes.
When you're going home from the office, on the train, the metro, driving, walking even, whatever it may be, we tend to look back on things and think, oh, I can't believe that happened. We don't think 98% of the time I've been superb. All we dwell on is the 2% when it didn't go
work.
quite right.
Absolutely.
Why do we do that, John?
Yeah, and we have 10 jobs on our jobs list for the day and do 9 of them. And instead of going on the way home and celebrating and talking to ourselves, what a great day, we've done 9 other things, we focus on the one that we haven't had time to do.
Absolutely. And going back, the second point I was going to make was that at the end of each day, just write down 2 or 3 things that really pleased you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Things that did that, particularly things that maybe you don't always excel at, that you've done, you think, I'm proud I did that today.
Yeah, remind yourself, because it will grow those pathways in the head that you want to be successful at. There's a great text that I read many, many years ago. It's called What to Say When You Talk to Yourself. We will show it up on the video for you in a moment. But if you're interested in self-talk and wanting to talk to yourself in a better way, I would definitely recommend it. It breaks self-talk down into 5 different levels, and you will read it. It shows you all the things that you say to yourself, and you'll read it, because this is what happened to me. You'll read it and go, yeah, I do that, yes I do that, and I do that. And then what it helps you do is it helps you flip it over. So, certainly go out and have a look at that. If you're not inclined to do that, then just take 2 or 3 things that you want to talk to yourself. I am good at what I do. I am going to get better at that. I am confident in this situation. Whatever the self-talk is that you want to say, make a note of it, write it down, and then the key thing after that, when it's written down, is to remind yourself to read it every day.
And I think the key there, John, is I am, present tense. I am, not I will.
Very good point. The brain likes to think in the present tense, even if you're thinking in the future. That's a really good point that you raise. Muhammad Ali was famous for his phrase, I am the greatest. That was a great bit of self-talk. But he was saying that at the age of 12. He didn't say, I will be the greatest, or I can be the greatest. He said, I am the greatest. So if you want to be fantastic at presentations, your self-talk needs to be, I am great at presentations. Even if you're working on becoming great, the brain does like to work in that present tense.
Well, you put yourself in a moment as if you're actually there.
Yeah.
So you might be preparing for something in a week's time, but the brain has to be in that situation. I'm there. It's almost the start of visualization, perhaps, John, then, isn't it?
Yeah, very much so. And finally, really, it's not to worry about what other people are going to think or say about your self-talk and what you're doing. What we're not telling you to do is write down how great you are and what self-talk you want, and then share it with everybody, because actually it isn't for everybody else, it's for you. And we know through research and history that most of the successful people that you will read about or see or in the media or in the limelight, they will take time out of their day to work on their self-talk.
Very true. Very true.
Especially sports people.
Well, I can't imagine some of the leading sportsmen or business people in the world regularly going to work and thinking, I can't possibly do this. They change their mindset.
Yes.
They find a way.
Yeah, absolutely. And often, and I know you spend a lot of time in sports, Nick, you could hopefully back me up on this, often the difference between gold and silver will be mental and not physical.
Well, I've been fortunate to play with a lot of county cricketers, professional athletes and things like that. And the difference between people who make it and those that don't is minimal. But the minimal part is the big part. It's up there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Ability-wise, a cricketer or an athlete, I know a very, very good county athlete who could have gone further, but when he came up against other athletes in a race who he perceived to be better, he'd back out.
Yeah, absolutely. And remember, your actions will follow your thinking, and that's why it's so important and so critical that we get our self-talk right. So to sum up for you then on this tutorial about self-talk, there are 3 key learning points. Learning point number 1 is write down what you want to say to yourself. Write it down, make sure it's somewhere that you're going to see it. That's the first key point, learning point number 1. Learning point number 2, Nick, is about reading those self-talk points that you've written down on a regular basis. That is really key. If you don't do it regularly, you won't build the pathway in the brain, and you won't take some new action sustainably. That's really quite key.
Because again, like everything in life, it's repetitions of successful actions.
Yes.
No different to preparing for anything. You
Correct.
just prepare the mind.
Yeah. So learning point number 1, write down your self-talk. Learning point number 2, read that self-talk on a regular basis. And learning point number 3, to finish us off, is do not worry about what other people will say. Do not worry about what other people think. It's that they've probably got an issue with their self-talk. It's not for them, it's for you. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this tutorial today. Thank you for your time, Nick. There'll be more tutorials in the series, so please go onto the menu and click the next one, whichever one takes your fancy. But it's bye for now.
Bye.
Bye now.